We now have Jen Heape, CCO of Vixen Labs. Jen is an international speaker who will unpack the future of the conversational metaverse. We've all heard of the voice economy, right? Alexa do this, Alexa do that. And so she's going to be talking about how the conversational metaverse can be driven by synthetic media, including ethical deepfakes and voice clones.
Hang on a sec. Hi everyone, can you hear me okay? Tech drama is over. Despite being someone who works in tech, my inability to cope with actually plugging in a presentation and getting it to display on the right screen seems to be second to none. I have some amazing news. The fact that I'm speaking now means you are T-2 talks to drinks, which I think is probably what we all need to hear right now. Especially these guys, apparently. Okay, I'm here to talk about media, money, and the metaverse. Really, it's taking a bit of a step back and talking about why we, all of us, might actually interact with the metaverse and how that might be done and how we might do it. We've just heard from Josh about actually what that might mean as an employee. I want to talk about this in terms of engagement with brands and content. Now, this is an absolutely huge area, and I'm going to take one little slice and also keep this talk nice and short. This is a slide you were not expecting from someone who works in tech about to talk about the metaverse. I don't know how well everyone can see. I know there's a little screen in the middle of the room as well. You might just be able to make out on the left-hand side two pretty old-looking people in a very sort of scruffed-up photo, and above the shop front is Skeltons. That is my mother's maiden name. These photos are from my family's clothing business in northern Cumbria. The photo from the left is actually probably from Maryport. I don't know if there's any Cumbrians here. Probably not. I think we're way too far south. Normally it's the Watford Gap that is the definition of the north, let alone here. But that's Maryport in approximately 1937. The one in the middle is the storefront. Those photos are from Maryport or Silloth. It's an even smaller place in rural Cumbria. From the 40s, maybe the 50s, trying to sort of diagnose the age of those clothes. If anyone is a clothing archivist, please let me know. And on the far side, on the right-hand side, that is a lady called Jean. That is my grandmother. And she took over the helm of the business and ran the stores probably until, as far as I can work out from family stories, about the 1970s. I am going somewhere with this, by the way. But let's just have a little afternoon story time. I hope everyone's got a cup of tea. I am horribly biased, but Jean was pretty awesome. She was known for her style and would frequently travel down south to not just the exciting headline act of Manchester, but also sometimes London. And she would buy stock. She was actually a fashion buyer, is what you would call it now. They actually had they had about 3 or 4 stores up north at one point, and also a factory as well. So she'd come down, check what the trends were, trend watch, check what the trends were, and then either buy them from down here or take them up north. She was trusted to keep her stylish clients super stylish in what Cumbria in the 1960s was like. Really at the peak of fashion. She was the one who was going down to London. Not many people did. But she was also Cumbrian through and through. And not only if you didn't know the name, if you knew the name Skelton, you knew that we'd been there for generations. But if not, actually in the gentle lilt in her voice. So you would know that if you went into that store, you would be stylish, you'd look pretty fab, but it would be appropriate for the area of the country you were in. You weren't going to look like, some idiot down in London. I was born in Dorset, so I feel I can sort of bridge both. And our family name was above the door. It was trusted. It was a person. What on earth does this have to do with anything? Well, what I want to talk about is, as the decades have gone by, what has happened to this one-to-one experience that we had in stores? So we went from the high street, and listen, I'm not here saying the high street has dissolved, but we can all say that it has radically changed from the 1970s, right? We've gone from physical stores to the convenience of online, from career shopkeepers, people who had a specialism, to direct to brand. And we've gone from sort of really getting to know people to this trusted relationship to always on-ish. At least that was the benefit. But the need for a trusted connection has actually never left, but we really struggled to actually make it work in digital. If any of you have ever had the delight of occasionally working in social, I did at one point. And I actually remember like almost the holy grail of working in social was actually trying to make human connections with people, actually trying to get that rapport. So it's something that we've always been clamoring after. But what on earth does this have to do with the metaverse? So what is the connection between these three? So here we've got Spotify Island on Roblox. This was a virtual land that was created that was connecting visitors with musical artists and performers. You could play games, you could get merchandise and you sort of meet other people in the metaverse. This was quite well documented. This is a vision of the future of work meetings. Topical, I didn't know the previous talk. I hope it's more exciting than this. I think we really can do better than just being disembodied like half torsos in the work. But anyway, so. And this last one, which is whatever on earth Meta's vision of fencing is, I'm not really sure. But, this is an interesting one because, however much we might naysay it, we do need to at least keep out the corner of our eye what Meta is saying about the metaverse. What is the thing that connects all three? I would say it's the fact that they are meeting places. The metaverse is about the one-to-one connection we lost in the digital era. The last big shift in how brands and consumers interact came with digital. We went from the information that we were searching for, the entertainment we were consuming, and the commerce, the things that we were buying, went from face-to-face, from face-to-face as the primary way. You would walk in somewhere and, engage. You'd go and have a chat to Jean. To actually the screen being our primary interface. Not exclusively, but it has become the main channel. This next big shift with the metaverse brings us back to a new type of face-to-face. And I would suggest we are entering a new era of commerce. Here's a big statement. In the metaverse, assistants will be the new websites. Because at the heart of all these experiences, at the heart of all of these meeting places, is going to be conversational AI. We're not going to type into the metaverse, are we? We're going to talk into it, and it's going to talk back to us. And also, we actually are striving to reconnect in this one-to-one way. I would actually argue this is why we're bothering to try and create the metaverse. It's not just because we really desperately want to add a load more tech into the world, probably. It's actually because in the face of the sheer scale of modern, global, instant commerce that has so many benefits, we're not going to go back from it. It's all too convenient. But we need to find a way to make that marry up with our need to have connections, need to have that one-to-one. And a huge amount of this is going to be driven by conversationally controlled environments, and at the heart of that, synthetic characters. Because actually in the metaverse, the reality, when you're looking at vast scale of interacting with brands, organizations, funnily enough, even people, like if you think about influencers, in that way in social, where we were trying to send a gazillion messages or trying to have these connection points, you want to be able to actually having one-to-one conversations, which is actually impossible to have in real time. So this is where the concept of synthetic characters comes into play. And this is the idea of also, as brand identities, moving away from a tone of voice to actually fully fledged character design. Whether or not that is shopping, whether or not that is customer service, even advertising. Here is an example of something that is called an ethical deepfake or a voice clone. Ethical deepfake probably sounds like an oxymoron. It's not. This is where actually we're taking a cloning of a voice, of incredibly high fidelity cloning of a voice, but with the permission of the person. So here, I'm going to show you a few examples. Hopefully it will play. And these are people who've given permission because actually they want to be able to have one-to-one, conversationally AI-led interactions with people in a voice that is exactly the same as their own, and also in almost any language in the world. Oh no, it's not going to play. I will try and get it to play later on. In the meantime, that was my cue to have a drink of water. It is actually absolutely fascinating. And now the amount of training data that you have to put in has really, really reduced. You're looking at, it used to be hours and hours and hours and pages, and now it can be a lot less. It's impossible if I came to something like this and didn't show some stats. So here I wanted to talk about something here, which is actually about the willingness of people to actually potentially use synthetic media in the future. Why, when we're talking about the metaverse, there's a lot of reticence, but also people are quite intrigued. But when you talk about, are you interested in interacting with a synthetic character, people are a lot less freaked out than you would imagine. And there's a solid willingness to do so, especially when you're looking at searching for information. I know that you guys might, because I was sat in that back corner there, you might struggle to see these slides. Do not worry. All these slides are taken from the synthetic media edition of our Voice Consumer Index report, and there is a QR code at the end that you can snap, and you will get the report for free. I work in conversational AI, so I'm obviously going to be talking about voice in this instance, and synthetic and voice is fundamentally connected, because what is the thing that's going to drive the metaverse in these conversations, these potentially decentralized conversations that we're having? Well, it's going to be voice. And something that we know is actually now, if you look to the left, that I often see voice almost like as a stepping stone into the metaverse almost. It's kind of our training wheels. It's like the gateway drug type scenario. And you can see that actually most people are now using voice assistants every single day. This isn't a chart of people who already use voice assistants. This is everyone. And these stats were taken from 3 different territories of 6,000 respondents in the UK, the US, and Germany. So actually a really pretty diverse bit of polling in those 3 territories. And also there's a really pretty substantial uptake in voice tech. Something that you can see on the right here is people basically saying that they are how familiar they are with voice is actually less than how much we know that they are using it, which is really, really fascinating. People are already using these technologies. Trust is a huge part of face-to-face experiences, and that really needs to be there. So actually, when you're looking at whether or not people trust voice and conversational AI, that is actually really radically improving. It was really supercharged during the pandemic when people actually kind of starting to see the real value in using conversational AI, and that's really continued. And also on the right-hand side, the expected increase in usage, actually, and this is by participants themselves. So people are actually saying themselves, yes, I intend to use it even more next year. It's not just someone like me who works in the industry saying, yes, people are going to. So what I've been talking about so far is actually the incredible power that there could be in the metaverse moving forward of actually ushering in a new era of commerce, of finding a way of actually really fundamentally reconnecting with consumers at a face-to-face level, bringing that back in, but with the convenience of the huge scale of a global sort of marketplace and ecosystem, but with the speed of digital. So, the ultimate goal here is actually the best of both worlds. This one's just for you guys. Because actually, when we're looking at, with the demands from your clients of, digital demands of speed and cost, actually the face-to-face opportunities for face-to-face research of primary research has been lost or reduced. We're also talking about here about, actually, I've heard us several times a day, levels of engagement in participants as well. Could synthetic and conversational AI be a solution here, or at least an option? Could it rekindle some of the human connection in online survey research? What is the difference in the level and the quality of response that you might get? What could happen there? How could it affect the data? We heard before about gamification being a massive driver for engagement. Totally a massive fan of gamification, 100% agree. But there's another bit as well, which is also about actually relationship development. There's a gamification in that engagement, but there's also about wanting to maybe talk to a single person and actually have that exchange in a one-to-one basis. So some food for thought here, actually. What could potentially be done in using synthetic media and using conversational AI in research, in primary research? Because I would argue, whether or not you're trying to buy a pair of socks or listen to some music or find out some information on how to look stylish in Cumbria, we all want a gene skeleton to guide us. We all want someone. We all want a person that we trust, we admire, and we connect with, that we trust is going to guide us to make the right decisions. And this isn't impossible to go and find. I mean, absolutely phenomenal stores still exist. I am a massive fan of the high street. But in the world of same-day delivery, are we actually going to give up on that convenience? So where is the middle ground? And I would argue that this is a space for conversational AI, augmented for the metaverse with synthetic media. If you would like to find out more about what people think of synthetic media, and also actually what people also think of the Voice Consumer Edition, Voice Consumer Index, here you've got the Synthetic Media Edition, and on our website, vixenlabs.co, you will also find links to our further research, which was done with our partners Delineate. Hi, Delineate. Thank you so much. You can also grab this QR code if you want to connect with me afterwards. And do we have time for any questions? Thank you.
Hands up for questions. Getting tired, I can't see anymore. Parvez.
That's really fascinating. Just wondered, are you actually using this application, and have you?
Yeah.
What kind of, results are you getting from your customers?
So not in the metaverse, to be honest, but we are using. We are already using synthetic media. One of the examples, and it's a shame I couldn't show that video. If anybody's interested, ping me and I'll send you the link, because it really is fascinating. We have actually done one piece of work. It's not released yet, but one piece of work actually using synthetic conversational AI with a major church out in the US. Okay, and actually so that they can have one of their celebrity pastors read out one of the Bible, one of the books in the Bible, and not only that, so it's read out as if it's being read out by this pastor, but also that can also be translated in exactly his voice, also in Spanish. That's the second language that has been done. The possibilities for that are almost infinite. That also, I think, opens up a really interesting thing around inclusion and diversity and representation. There's a whole other rabbit hole I can go around, which is also around representation and identity in education, especially in early years learners, and actually being able to hear voices that are similar to yours, especially as we move on to more online models of education. Also potentially in the metaverse, because education is also going to be coming along on this journey. So yeah, we do already work in it, and I'd happily tell you a bit more on the quiet as well.
Ray.
Thanks for the presentation. A quick question.
Yeah.
Why do you choose to use the term synthetic media versus, say, avatars, virtual assistants, given that semiotically there's a bit of a bias against the word synthetic?
I guess I'm thinking, so it's really interesting what you're mentioning there about semiotic. I would argue it's about transparency. I think it's about the transparency of actually saying this is synthetic, this isn't a real human. I work in voice, but I have no desire to ever trick someone that they're talking to a human. This whole thing of like, oh, it's not really a bot. I'm the first person to say you are now talking to a bot, because actually it's about trust. This whole thing was about how to create one-to-one trust. So actually for me, I think calling it synthetic, saying it is a synthesization of your voice, I'm not sure if that's a word. I'm going to go with it. I actually think that that's much, much more transparent. I think there's an argument for either way, for sure. And also synthetic media is actually broader than just voice cloning as well. So it isn't just purely related to avatars. Also, avatars don't necessarily have the voice of an individual. So when we're talking about, in this particular instance here, in this particular use case, it's synthetic when you're talking about voice cloning.
When it comes to ethical deepfakes, what are the limitations around the rights of that? Does someone sign over their voice kind of in perpetuity for any purpose, or are there limits to what you can do with it and for how long?
It is super complicated. I'm also not going to give a politician's answer here, but this isn't my direct field. So we work with a partner actually on the creation of the synthetic voices, and they've done a huge amount of work in this area. They're actually... when they're looking at this, they're actually coming at it from the media standpoint, as in like they don't want these sort of media celebrities and people who work in that field to feel threatened. It's actually about reach and diversity and language and all those sorts of, or just being in the metaverse 48 hours a day. Let me send you in the direction of the right person who can go into the legalities of it. I hark back to that previous point. I think it's all about transparency. I think it is a tricky area in terms of like the legalities of it all, but I know it's something that you can do a huge amount and make sure it's all being done up front. And these people also, they look like them. So you know that you're talking to this person. It's not like, a deep fake where for malicious reasons.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.